Well, welcome back to another re-education experience podcast. I call it a modern realtor's playbook. Again, I'm your host, as always, Darren Langille, creator of the re-education brand that has one goal. The whole goal for me is build better realtors, and I do it via the podcast here, courses and challenges, and a lot more. So thanks for, again, being with us on the show. Today, I have a special guest by the name of Jimmy Mackin. For those watching, you can see him on the screen already on the show with me. Jimmy is the founder. He's the CEO of Curator, and which was, if you don't know, or is a premium marketing and real estate website company that takes what I always like to say, this very proactive path to securing leads for you. And just recently, he launched something I talked about at Thrive last week, Attract, which is there to set qualified buyer and seller appointments to massive success. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Jimmy right now, for those listening, is, in my opinion, one of the guys right at the leading edge of what the consumer is looking for from us as realtors, because he's out there and he's out there sticking his neck out on the line, creating leads and saying that he can do that for his paying clients. He has no choice but to figure it out and to succeed, right, Jimmy? With the world as noisy and likely, I would say, ad overloaded and even ad numb, this job is probably harder and harder, yet he's constantly finding ways to succeed at massive levels. Jimmy, we were really lucky to have last week dazzled our Thrive Not Survive audience, speaking about many of the lessons he's learned in generating now over 1.1 billion worth of set appointments for his clients this year alone. I know that's a huge number to fathom. So Jimmy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. And you said something interesting in the intro around how difficult it is to generate leads today for real estate agents. And it's interesting because we generate millions of leads a year. We generate tens of millions of leads over our career at Curator. And the definition of a lead, it has changed during that last decade. The novelty of lead generation has worn off for many real estate agents. In the past, we were all so excited about the potential of getting someone to fill out a form on a website or DM us on social. But now that there are so many people in this space, and there are so many different ways in which you can lead generate, what agents now are looking for is they're looking for quality above quantity, and they're looking for ways to have more meaningful conversations with people who are looking to make a move now versus later. And so the challenge of lead generation today isn't about just generating leads, because I think anybody, frankly, can generate leads. It is really solving those two problems. Solving the problem of high intent, someone actually wants to make a move or buy or sell, and then timing. They want to do it relatively soon. That is where the puck is headed right now in lead generation for people who are in the space like me.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, because you're right. I mean, I've been through that journey. I've been on the gas really hard with it, and you've seen agents that rely on that can become very much, again, numb to just the volume that can come from, like you said, a quantity-based lead gen system with a later-based lead system is tough, right? So I like that you mentioned that that's where it's going, and that's where maybe people are starting to be aware to say, I will pay more for that, because they get how hard it's been to get through that journey, right?
Yeah, you bring up a great point around sort of the investment required, because you're either paying a lot at the beginning or you're paying a lot throughout the process. Right. And what I mean by that is, in the US, we've got major portals like Realtor.com and Zillow, who will have different various lead generation programs, but they'll charge you different prices, right? They'll charge you like a higher premium for a lead for someone who's looking to schedule a showing versus you going and generating leads on your own through Facebook. So you may pay 10 times, 15 times the cost for that opportunity than you would if you were generating on your own. The reason why it can still work for some people who make these investments is because if you do basic lead generation, all of your costs shift from the beginning of the funnel to the back of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel, meaning that all the costs come in the ISA department, the lead follow-up, the nurture, right? So that is where, if you're looking at to develop a marketing strategy, the short answer is like there's challenges at every stage. Part of being thoughtful about developing a strategy that works for your business is to understand where are you really strong, and then begin to build a strategy around that, if you will.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Now at the event, Jimmy brought so much value that we ran out of time for Q&A. And I told the audience that I was like, oh, guess what? Jimmy's on my podcast next week. So we can, I can hammer you with some stuff. So again, I'm really blessed to have you here back to back, where it's pretty fresh with what we talked about. And again, where I thought I could always go with you. And I know we've been chatting about this for a little while. So I wanted to shift directions a little bit on you first, away from the lead gen.
Sure.
Something I know you talk a lot about, and maybe not something inherently linked to you as the role of a CEO of a kind of a tech company for realtors. But you go out there and you talk a lot about agent recruitment. You talk a lot about leadership in teams, and this conversation about recruitment. And again, that's not the maybe sweet spot for what you did, but you like to speak out about that. I know recruitment is a word that has such a negative bias out there, right? Why is it, in your opinion, that the word recruitment gets all icky? And I'm talking from team leadership here, right? Which is a big group of the people that work with your platform, which is, again, it's not the cheapest on purpose, and it's a premium solution. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when we evaluate recruiting in real estate today, the reason it's so depressing, and the reason why so many folks have soured on it, is because if you're a broker today, your business is largely in structural decline. And what I mean by that is you have rising cost and decreasing pricing power. A typical, and I'm talking about the average run-of-the-mill kind of brokerage, meaning your agents are demanding more services from you, which increases your operating expenses, which increases your overhead. At the same time, they're willing to pay less for it.
Right.
And so you've got the situation where if you don't do A and B and C, your competition will. And don't even think about charging a premium for that, because you're going to get hung up on. Agents want low caps, and they want high splits, right? And that is a world where, when I look at the recruiting space, Darren, that is a race to the bottom, hard stop. And so the reason I talk about this is because before I'm an advertiser, before I'm a marketer, before I'm a salesperson, I'm a business owner. And the purpose of a business is to deliver a service that you can charge a premium for, so you can make a profit. Right. And somehow along the way, we forgot about the importance of profit. And you see this, and I don't know if it was just the age of cheap capital in the real estate industry, or high flying tech startups who basically masqueraded as technology companies, but were just simply traditional brokerages. But we got away from like the basic fundamentals of running a good business. And so the reason I talk about this, because I want my customers, I help my customers make more money, but I want them to keep it, right, so they can pay me, right? Like it's not altruistic. Like, I want them to make money, and I want them to keep it so they can continue to pay me. And so recruiting for me, and really business building, to me, is a passion of mine, because I'm a student of the game, and I think that this industry needs to stop with the better sameness. We need to, like, if you got kids, for those of the people who are watching right now who've got kids, and you go to a young like your kids like recital, right, when they're like 4 or 5 or 6 years old, they go on stage to perform an act. What you will see is all of the kids are looking at each other to figure out what to do next, right? They can't really think for themselves, or waiting for like what is the next move, or what's the next word in that song. That's like the state of real estate brokers. We're all looking at, what is that other person doing there? Let me just like, what's their move, and then I'll just make that move. And like, I want our industry, and I want the people in our industry who have a desire to really do something special, to recognize the answers are not inside the tent. They're not inside the sort of boys club circle that we're all used to in real estate. The answers to building a great brokerage exist outside of our industry, and we need to study other businesses to get some inspiration. So yeah, that's my just my thoughts on that topic, Darren.
When you've seen those that have, been around your world, because I know you work with such a large group of quality and top producing teams, when you say that message and then you look to your clientele that you can see is winning in that game, do you find any constant themes or threads about this recruitment that has worked that you pass along to the audience?
100%. I think of Euler and Hines. They're a fantastic brand out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Mike Hines and Scott Euler, just a powerhouse duo. I think of Susanna Murphy in Massachusetts, Lante Real Estate. I think of Lucky to Live Here Realty in the Cold Spring Harbor in New York. The characteristics that I find, I think of like another one, a good example would be Thrive Realty. My good friends Jessica Woodbeck and Justin Woodbeck, and I'm specifically kind of looking at indies for the time being, right? I'm looking at independent brokerages because I think you can look at it from two different perspectives. So these are all indies that I just mentioned. And one more, Brad Allen. If you're making a list right now, Brad Allen in South Carolina just does an amazing job. He's got multiple locations, just delivers a ton of value. The common theme, to answer your question, the common theme is that there's two components. They are truly full service. And what I mean by that is whether it's marketing, sales support, administration support, legal, finance, offices, right? I know it's a bit of a trigger word for many people, but they are a true full service. So the types of agents they attract are not the ones who want to keep 100% of their commission and want to go out there and eat what they kill. The agents they attract are ones that value convenience. And the way to think about this, Darren, is there are certain people who will go online, order food, get in the car, go pick it up. And there are other people who will order on Uber Eats, click a button, pay a $15, $20 premium, and wait 45 minutes for it to be delivered to your house. If you are a Uber Eats solution and you're marketing to people who want, like my brother, who's the cheapest person on the planet, who will spend who will walk to the store before he pays a delivery fee. Like if you're marketing to those folks, what will happen is you're going to constantly fight over price. So what I would be saying is the common theme is that there are full services brokerages who recruit people who value full service. It doesn't mean that if someone doesn't like what you do, it doesn't mean that you have a bad business. It means that you're targeting the wrong person, the wrong clientele. So that would be one common theme. The other theme, speaking more broadly about the industry, the organizations that have done an exceptional job, and I mean truly an exceptional job, are the organizations that have incentivized the best agents in the world to share their secret sauce. We are in a world where collaboration is a word that gets thrown out around a lot, and you see a little bit of it, but for the most part, in your local market, there's not a heck of a lot of collaboration. There's a lot more competition than there is collaboration. They'll share a little bit of what they're doing, but they're not going to share everything that they're doing. And so what's interesting to me is that if you look at like what Real has done and what EXP has done, and there's probably a handful more that are starting to kind of enter into the space, and I expect there'll be a lot of fast followers, is that let's take Real as an example, because Sharon's my guy. I got so many friends there. Obviously, you guys are there doing great work. The thing that makes Real special is and I know everyone talks about the culture of the community. Okay, that's a byproduct of introducing financial incentives that allow really smart people to share their hard-earned lessons that they've built their careers on. And so we go, it's the community, it's the culture. No, it's the financial incentive that is in place that enables, or call it incentivizes, people like Joe Herrera to say, here's how I generate $90 million a year in Facebook leads. Or people like Brad McCullen, here's my exact step-by-step process on how I shoot a listing to our video. Now, Brad will probably do that already because he's just a good dude, but that financial incentive exists for really smart people to make it way easier for the rest of us. And the mistake that everybody makes, and I mean everybody makes, is that when people think about the value of these organizations, they immediately jump. If you're an individual agent, they immediately jump to the rev share opportunities, right? Well, it's unlikely you're going to get any rev share, or even if you do, it'll be pretty minimal, relatively speaking. What you actually do get though is you get this institutional knowledge that can help you generate 6 figures a year, and you can accelerate your learnings and get to where you want to go in a fraction of the time. To me, that's a heck of a lot more valuable than maybe a few $1,000s a month in rev share. And so I think these are the like what I'm and again I'm going to land the plane here for you, Darren. The themes that you asked me about is, number one, full service brokerages who attract people who value full service. The second trend amongst these really smart brokerages is they are creating the right environment for collaboration and community that benefits everybody within the organization, not just the few folks at the top, if you will.
Right.
And those are things I would be thinking about if I'm trying to sort of revamp or reimagine the way I structure my team of business. I think what's dead is where you go hang your license at a brokerage and pay them a really small fee and hope that like that person doesn't ask you any questions. Like, and you're just trying to get like a lot of volume at a really low cost. I think those models are just absolutely dead on arrival. They're hanging their hat on attachment rate with mortgage and title. That is a bad business to be in. Hard stop, right? Like that's a bad business to be in. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of how I think about it.
When you say that, and then we roll it to the idea of teams, because teams still have this incredible opportunity, right? Teams are, I mean, you would probably know as more than I. The team leaders are taking more market share by the day, right? Because they're funded. They can use programs like yourself. They can pay in advance. They can drive this forward. So it's that same thing: convenience, likely value baked in, full service. So they can. So I mean, whether you're indie or team, I would assume you're seeing it through the same lens, right? Because there's also far more people listening to this that are team leaders or would-be team leaders that are than independent brokers, right? And your conversation flows right to them too. Fair?
Well, the thing about it, team is the greatest. It is the greatest reallocation of wealth from brokers to agents that's ever existed, right? Because before the team structure really was a thing, right? And I know it's been around for a while. Before it really became popularized, the brokers really had a lot more control, a lot more power, and captured a lot more of the revenue or the profit, if you will.
For sure.
Teams, right, are like all of the benefit and none of the cost, relatively speaking, right? Like you have all the independence. You can go from A to B. You can flow people around. Like people just move their entire teams to another brokerage. Like that's like, you can't just move your entire brokerage to another brokerage. Well, I guess you can, but like, damn, that's not an easy thing to do.
That took us like 12 months, folks. Right? Yeah.
like a team, you say, hey, wake up, hey, I'm no longer going to be with X, and I'm jumping over to Rio. Okay, cool. Like we'll have it done in 3 weeks. Like that is a the flexibility in teams is truly on paramount, and they've captured all the power, which is why they command a premium. Here's the thing though about teams. And this is the mistake I've seen made countless times. It's a guidance I want to give your audience. The team leader has got to decide what type of team leader they're going to be, what type of team leader they want to be. Because you can be a player coach. You could be in the game and you can have your entire team run shotgun with you. Watch me work, do my magic, learn through osmosis. I'll help you along the way. But we are all in the trenches together. And so the player coach is a great role to be in, because the player, meaning the team leader, is still getting the vast majority of their production from their own individual business. And then they're getting some supplemental income from these other agents who are partnering with them. But there's not a lot of risk. If someone leaves the team, the team leader doesn't get completely wiped out, because they're still very much in production. Then you've got the coach, right? Where it's just like coach and players. And when you're the coach and players, well, guess what? Your entire income is dependent on your agent's production. Now you're in the thought of saying, okay, I've got to systems and software and people and training. I've got to really embrace that. And I've got to be doing two things: helping my current teammate, my current team increase their production, while at the exact same time looking to the horizon to find the next person to add, because I'm going to have attrition. In some respects, I'm always training my competition when you run a team. And then there is the sort of GM, right? The GM is someone who, let's say, is at a level, and this is where like it starts to like look like a brokerage in terms of the size, but they're still kind of a team. Might be 20 people, 30 people. The GM now is really overseeing the entire operations of the business. They typically have multiple people on payroll who are doing multiple things, and they begin to create sort of this assembly line where no single individual is really that important, because the infrastructure they built is the value of the team, not the individual agents. Now, here's the problem: is many team leaders don't know whether they're a player coach, a coach, or a GM. Right. And so they might act like a GM, but they actually need to be a player coach because they don't have enough income coming into their business, or they try to jump from a player coach into a coach too quickly, and their production plummets, and they get desperate and they get back into the business, and they have this huge curve in their production. Momentum is not an easy thing to just like flip the switch on. So I would advise the team leaders who are watching this right now to ask themselves the question: what should you be today, is number one. And Darren, number two is, where do you ultimately want to go? Because then the path becomes a bit clearer for you as you start to build your business. And I know Darren, you've got a ton of experience in this space. I think it'd be good for the audience for you to share your insight on this as well, because I know you probably look at it from a different lens than I do, but this is what I think teams really struggle with, is making these decisions.
Yeah, and part of the conversation is around the word we brought up earlier, which is profit, right? And that player coach model is quite profitable, as you can imagine. And as you transition over to, like you said, coach, you've alluded to this in a lot of your reels and your commentary, that generally you're stepping back in income significantly for a fair amount of time. And that transitionary period is painful in a bunch of ways, right? It's painful because you're taking less home. You've upgraded the responsibility, you've upgraded the staff, the expenses to make that transition. And a lot of teams attempted transitions don't go anywhere. And that molehill they think they're building is actually a mountain, and they're not willing to climb it.
Yeah. And well, you bring up a great point. I think I could say this as someone who has managed people. If you don't love managing people, and if you don't if you don't love other people succeeding more than you succeeding yourself, you probably should not be a manager. Like I have found that I actually enjoy more than anything else working on a project, being intimately involved, getting it to market, and then seeing the results, more than hiring people to do just that. And I know it sounds crazy as a CEO, but that is, for certain parts of the business, I should add a disclaimer, for certain parts of the business, I am as much as an individual contributor as I am a CEO, right? Like I'm really in the weeds doing it. And that is something that I think for the people who are listening right now, and you're spot on there, and like you just got to understand that about yourself before you embark on this journey, because you're right. It ain't a molehill. It's a mountain. It's a big mountain. So if you didn't bring the oxygen tanks, like you're already in trouble, is the point.
Yeah. I mean, the same message I think would also resonate for those that did go indie, did step out, and they become a player coach, but broker owner player coach, because the average brokerage is under 30 agents deep. And that player coach, to earn anything, still has to play in the field. And even that transition as broker owner virtually never happens, right? There's virtually not enough left in the kitty to fund the ability to grow and be that little guy that gets to 100. I know I went through that journey both as a team leader as well as a broker owner. Part of the reason I'm where I'm at today is with those lessons. I wouldn't probably have taken that same journey twice. But again, it's anybody ever wants to speak about that stuff, I think Jimmy and I could go deep. So
Sure.
Man, you spoke also about, mediocrity in the team, right? And mediocrity about like cutting the fat, getting rid of the bad fits. I think you said something to the effect that your organization will remain mediocre if indeed you let those agents on your squad that you would say are not hurting us, but they're certainly not the true fits. You probably see that a lot when you're trying to get, help their team leaders who are using your product to really take advantage of what they've provided. Anything you can think of to speak to that?
I'm reminded of a Graham Cook quote, which is mediocrity is invisible until passion shows up. And I think what's interesting to me about it is that when you've got people who are driven, who are ambitious, who care, who want to get better, who want to do something big, when you surround yourself with people like that, it is electric. It is 110% energy almost all of the time. And things can be challenging. Things are going to be hard. Things are not going to go your way. But when you've got people who wake up, who, when they look at a brick wall, they start building a ladder. Those are the people that, in my opinion, can take business, that can sort of are the necessary ingredients to take a business to the new heights. Oftentimes, we let people in our organization sit there who don't do anything, who don't add any value, who don't actually, and we justify it. Oh, well, they close 1 or 2 deals a year. It's not hurting anybody. But what you're doing is you're signaling to every single person in the organization, this is my standard. You could talk about having high standards all day long, but if I look at the corner over there and I see, this dude, Ben, who doesn't do shit, doesn't show up to work, doesn't make his phone calls, doesn't do any marketing, occasionally close a deal once in a while. Like if that dude's in the office, and if he even comes in the office, and that's who we're hiring, that to me tells me everything about you as a leader, if you will, and what you will accept. I am, for lack of a better word, fanatical about this. I have zero tolerance at Curator for people who aren't going to show up and bring the energy, because Darren, it's a choice. I mean, we all got problems, we all got issues. And if you bring that stuff and every roadblock you run into, it's someone else's fault or ho hum, it's me. Like, I'm sorry, you can never fix that. I talk about this a lot with my people team at Curator. I said I do not want to teach life skills. Sam Walton talked about this. He goes, when they talk about recruiting at Walmart, he goes, I never talked about working hard. Because if you didn't already know that, you shouldn't be here. Like if you didn't and so Stripe talks about this a lot, right? Stripe, the big financial startup, now soon to be public company, I'm sure at some point. They talk about the idea, we don't teach life skills. So compassion, like thoughtfulness, kindness, like the employer should not teach basic human skills. You want to hire those individuals who have those characteristics and create an environment where they can do really meaningful work. So yeah, I just think too many brokerages right now, too many team leaders right now have ridiculously high standards for themselves. And I think many people are watching, like they hold themselves to really high standards, but they're also like, it doesn't trickle down to their team. Yeah. And the worst characteristic, and I've learned this, and I've tried to work on this too, because this is something that I think I fell victim to, especially early in my tenure as a leader and as CEO. The worst characteristic of a leader, I mean, there is almost nothing as bad as this, and then that is the desire to be liked. If you have the desire to be liked as a leader, it is going to be, you are going to set yourself up for a world of hurt, because people are not going to like you and they're not going to agree with you, and you got to get over that, right? Like you get paid to make the decisions. That's the job. Yeah. And so I hope the team leaders watching right now start to look internally on this stuff, Darren, because I think ultimately this is at least, again, my observation is what's required here.
I mean, I think there's also this moment when you're running any organization as a team, and you know that mediocrity is in there. You understand that there's signaling to others, but to commit to yourself and to do, like you said, be the grade A top 1% agent, team leader, keep doing what you do as a player coach. You've kind of already figured that out. But the next level of leadership is to say, well, I'm going to also hold everybody else to that. That requires another level of work or another level of commitment from that leader. And most I find struggle to get there, to say, you know what, damn it, I got to rung it up another notch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because now I got to serve these 10 at that same level is
yeah,
scary. And I even think about that through my own lens at Redline. You know, we're not a team. We are a marketing group at Real, which is this big group of people, brand aligned to simplify life, to make an impact with our strength in numbers. In my head all the time, I dance between this thing, Jimmy. Do I push harder because I know I want the standards to be greater? Or do I not? And when I don't, it's because internally I'm like, I don't know if I got the capacity or willingness to commit to that level, to hold it to that standard, and then I pull back. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And that's a tough one. But then if you don't, you stay in that zone, right? You stay in that, maybe I'm not growing, right?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing the candidness about that, because I think all of us as leaders struggle with this. I have the longer your organization is in flight, right? Longer you've been in business, the more operational debt that you kind of acquire. And what that does, and you visualize this with me, it's sort of like you start to carry these bricks, and every step forward you're adding more and more bricks, and every step forward you're going a little bit slower. It's taking you a little bit longer to take this sort of next step. You know where you want to go, but you're carrying so much weight that you've acquired over all these decisions over all these years, and as a result, this nimble, fast, agile startup that you once were has now become the thing that you railed against, the thing that you never wanted to become, the thing that you were trying to disrupt. And so, what I like to do, because this is true for every organization I've had a chance to work with, or organizations I've had a chance to build, is I like to shake things up, and I like to throw the organization into chaos. And the reason, and I mean, like stripping down all the processes, that all the operational debt that we have, like it's the visual, or the equivalent of like doing a cold plunge, right? Shock the system.
Yeah.
So this to me is required in order to kind of move yourself forward. You got to like create that to don't list. Get rid of all the things that we're no longer going to do. And so when organizations bring me in to consult for them, or they ask for advice or guidance on this, that's the first thing that I do, is just say, listen, let's just get rid of all the things that no longer serve us that once did. It was not like people were dumb. We just made the decision based on the information that we had at our disposal. And so for me, a curator, it's easier to do for someone else's business than for your own business. For me, a curator, part of it is I think of myself as a chief simplicity officer, which is make the game really small for the team. Hey, this is all we care about here. I don't care about anything else unrelated to this. And so all I talk about, all I have meetings about, all the data that I collect is about that one thing. I sort of like, there's a great quote from Johnny Ive, famous designer at Apple, one of the pioneers of the iPhone, the iPad, worked hand in hand with Steve Jobs for many years. He said, it's not a priority until it's painful. And that is the essence of really running a good business, is saying, we are going to prioritize until it is absolutely excruciating, where we feel like, oh, I really wish I could do this other stuff. I really want to do it, but I'm choosing not to, just so I can focus on this main priority. And so I think that is part of the job of any leader, is to strip away all the unnecessary decisions that you've made that no longer serve you, and then figure out ways to add a degree of simplicity to your business, and then get used to repeating yourself. Welcome to management. That's the job, right? Keeping everyone focused on, hey, it's the old Stephen Covey line, keep the main thing the main thing. That is the hard part of running a business. But it's also, when you get that right, man, it's like all the alignment, all the energy kind of like gets locked into place, for sure.
Totally. I mean, I love every decision gets made. It gets made fast. It gets moved forward. Everybody's aligned from top down. So, I mean, you look outside of our industry a lot in your marketing ideas. You shared a bit of that at Thrive Not Survive, and I love doing that too. Most of the books I'm reading are not real estate people, right? Most of the podcasts I have are completely separate from that. That concept, I think a lot of people get, right? That thing, hey, look outside your industry for ideas, right? And the concept But how does that translate when you see some of that stuff? How do you translate it back to our use for us in real estate? I know a lot of themes that you've kind of shared when you've been in. I've listened to a bunch of your keynotes, and some of them are witty, right? Some really wittiness is pulled together. Then you see there's some real clarity of value. I can think of the one thing you shared about Beyond Meat and the hamburger, right?
Yeah.
Building a connection with your audience. There was one with this dog, and it's just really easy. Realtors, and you and I've talked about this, we're just like awful marketers for the most part. When you've looked at it and shared it, what comes to mind for us to really translate into real estate? I don't know if it's easier to say if I brought up the term wit. Where do we go with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought I'd just bring that up with you.
Yeah, it's the most important thing to understand about being a great marketer. And by the way, being a real estate agent, it's not like you can be a great real estate agent and not be a great marketer. You have to be a great marketer. Like, you should think about it as important as it is to understand how to negotiate a deal. You should think about the same thing is true as this is part of my job description, is to understand marketing, understand consumer behavior, understand sales. This is part of the job. And so the first thing is that a lot of agents sort of are self-diagnose themselves as like, oh, I'm not a marketer. Well, that language or that mindset is in itself, you're already starting behind. You should think of yourself as a marketer and recognize this is part of your job, because technically, when it comes to if you're representing the seller, you that is part of your job. You're there to market they're hiring you to market their property. So if you don't understand marketing, it means that you don't understand how to do a big part of your job. When we look at the surveys conducted by companies like 1000 Watt, who do an amazing job interviewing consumers, and they cite the reasons why a seller, or the things that a seller values from their listing agent, almost always you'll see marketing being one of the key parts of that. You go into a good listing consultation or presentation, and a good listing agent will be talking about how we're going to market your property. So so I think agents are generally, to be clear, I think agents are generally good at marketing their listings. I think they can do a better job in many ways, but like, they understand the importance of that. It's when it comes to marketing themselves where they really struggle, because they think they have to be a personality. They think they have to be the next Brad McCullum. They think they gotta have great hair, live in a beautiful city, right? Have beautiful houses in order to really stand out. And what's not true about that is that the consumer cares about their problems. They care about their goals. And oftentimes all of our marketing is inward facing. We're thinking about ourselves. How do I look? How do I sound? What am I supposed to say? If we start to look outward at our customers and really internalize what it is about the consumer, or what are they thinking or feeling, or what are the things that are concerning them, keeping them up at night, and how do we then help them make better, more informed decisions, then marketing becomes a heck of a lot easier. Like, I remember you guys recently in Canada introduced the sort of restriction or moratorium on foreigners buying houses. And this was big news, and there was a bunch of there's a bunch of news in the U.S. about this. Very anti-Canada, because we want to buy your houses, right? And I'm sure in Canada there was a bunch of pro Canadian news saying like, hey, listen, we don't want all these outside investors driving up prices and making it unaffordable for everyday Canadians. And so I think about these news stories, and say to myself, okay, like, is it better to have a clever little ad where you're pointing at things on the screen and dancing to the latest trending topic on TikTok, or where you're shooting a video explaining to the consumer how this moratorium on foreign investors is going to have an impact, short-term, mid-term, long-term, on the everyday Canadian homeowner? I don't know. I think I choose the latter, because that's the thing they actually care about. So when you start to recognize, and if you could flip that switch, where what are the questions I'm getting from my customers every day around affordability, around inventory, around the specific questions around the particular house, new construction versus an existing build, school districts, whatever comes to your mind as it relates to the questions you're getting, how can you then take those questions and translate that into forward-facing consumer marketing? So my hero in advertising, Darren, is a guy by the name of David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy, the author of On Advertising, he's the godfather of like modern day advertising. He wrote a book called On Advertising, as well as Confessions of an Admin, and just fantastic, like call it baseline foundational reading on advertising. He talks about this idea of how it's so much more important to be clear than it is to be clever. And that's what we're looking for in the market. Can we provide clarity for the consumer? Can we provide them the insight they need to make informed decisions? Can we be a resource? And if you think about this, and this is the one, everyone who's tuning in and listens to this live or the replay, if you can just internalize this, every time you write an email, create a blog post, shoot a video, if you can internalize this concept, where if you say to yourself, okay, imagine that I am explaining this idea to somebody who doesn't know anything about real estate, who is looking to make a decision and is already a customer of mine. Meaning we talk to our an audience, a cold audience, so different than we talk to a customer.
Right.
It's like, imagine they're already your customer. Darren, if one of your clients called you up when you used to sell real estate, one of the clients called, hey Darren, listen, man, like you helped me sell my house 5 years ago. I'm thinking about selling my house. I'm really not sure what I should be doing. Like that conversation, the questions you'd ask, the guidance you'd give them, is the tonality, the language, right? The theme of how you should communicate to strangers. Just imagine they're already customers. And that's going to go from the cheesy, like buy now, sell now, do this now kind of marketing to more like, here are 5 things you should know, and here are 3 reasons why you shouldn't sell. Like that's the type of stuff consumers really want that we all have, if you will.
Yeah, and that would go right into the world of like brand building that is so big out there. Everyone thinks brand means all these things, like, you go back to our buddy Brad, the hair or the this or the that.
Yeah.
That's not the brand. If the brand can come from this place of with proper tone, you can think of it in their mindset, and your brand is built by being the guy or gal that is portraying that properly. That is how a brand builds, fair to say, versus the other external things, right?
Yeah, there's everyone should look on YouTube for a guy by the name of Scott Galloway, who he's the author of Algebra of Happiness, The Big Four. He's a brand strategy professor at NYU Stern. He has a very popular podcast with Kara Swisher called Pivot. And I've learned so much about brand from him, understanding really brand strategy. And brand strategy really is, it's if I were to define brand in the simplest terms, it's association through experiences. That's all it is. It's the association that you build through your personal experiences. So in the case of a consumer, the association that they're going to build is by interacting with you in whatever the means that they interact with you, whether it's in person, online, offline, doesn't make a difference. How their experience is. If the experience is it's a used car salesman's pitch, even if you're the nicest, kindest, sweetest, most dedicated real estate agent out there, if that's the first thing that they're going to experience in the wild, then don't be surprised when your phone ain't ringing. Right. And so the experiences that you create for the consumer online helps them build the association that you are different, unique, and special. And that is what ultimately becomes your brand for that consumer. The mistake that many of us make when it comes to brand is we think about brand as this like, this thing that we develop that we really control. No, it's the experiences that the consumers have with your company that actually creates the brand. And Jeff Bezos has a great line. He goes, brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, not what your marketing team wrote up as a slogan. So I would be thinking about the consumer experience, everything from marketing to sales. Like, let me give you one really practical example there. I know we're running short on time, and this has been such a fun conversation because I know we didn't talk about lead gen, right? Because when I hang up the phone, I'm going to be thinking about lead gen, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like, think about this idea. If I was prospecting, calling, like if I was going to go call through my database, I can call with a salesperson's mindset, or I can call the customer service person's mindset, right? Hey, Darren, this is Jimmy calling ABC Realty. I know you're not expecting my call. The reason I'm reaching out is because this home just hit the market just down the block for you. Anytime that happens, we want to let anyone in the neighborhood know, just in case they got someone in their family or friend network that might be thinking about making a move. Right? Like, that's going to start a conversation that could lead to potentially a listing appointment, that could lead to a referral, as opposed to, hey, this home just hit the market. Are you interested in buying? Like, no, like that's not what consumers want. And that's not what realtors want either. Realtors don't want to do a hard pitch. Yet that's kind of the world that we've sort of fallen into. So yeah, I'm just a huge fan and believer of this basic idea that, brand is a mission critical part of any organization. And if you start thinking about it through this idea of associations built through experiences, you start thinking about all the experiences a consumer has, it reshapes the way in which you run your business.
And that, I mean, Jimmy, you mentioned online, you mentioned on a circle dial, but you can translate that same message through the Facebook ad, through the copy, through the just listed, through the just sold, like you said, through the coming soon, through the I'm just about to take a listing appointment. Like you said, you have those 4 stages that our Thrive Not Survivors got to hear about. You can translate that same messaging in all of those levels, right? So
yeah, exactly.
All right, Jimmy. Well, once again, I know we have come up on time, and I'm so grateful that you've taken all of this time with me and my audience. And we went deep, and we went into some stuff that I think you don't always get a chance to go fully into because, again, this tech forward lead gen based business. So thank you for going there with me. To find out more about Curator and anything you wanted to roll out as far as like what's coming new, or what should people just know about happening right now, or just should they just follow you on Instagram and that's where you find it all?
The best place to tell everyone, follow me on Instagram. I don't share pictures of puppies. I don't share pictures of what I ate for dinner last night. You're never gonna see a photo with plain wings in it. I only share relevant information that's useful. I'm on a mission to become the most useful person to follow on Instagram. So I don't post that much. I don't post a lot of reels, but I do post more stories. But anytime I want to post something on Instagram, it is always going to be something designed to help you get value for your business. So if you even look at my feed, my archive, there's a tremendous amount of content out there to help you run a better business, generate more leads, have more conversations, close more deals.
Awesome, man. Well, hopefully everybody here already does. And if they don't, go find you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, my friend. And that's been another Re-Education Experience podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you all next time.